The city of London was alive that night, but inside the Dorchester Hotel, Donald Trump felt dead. The suite was vast, but the silence was heavier than the rain sliding down the glass. He sat at the mahogany desk, his hair disheveled, his suit undone, his tie abandoned on the floor. On the desk, piles of newspapers screamed at him. Trump empire collapses, the end of the golden boy. Too much debt, too much pride. Each headline felt like a bullet. For years, he had been unstoppable, untouchable. He built casinos in Atlantic City, hotels that rose higher than the clouds, and plastered his name in gold on every building that was his. People had admired him, envied him, feared him. He had been the man who couldn't lose, and yet here he was, cornered, drowning in debt, betrayed by banks, mocked by the very media that once worshipped him. His so-called friends had vanished overnight. Phone calls went unanswered. Invitations dried up. The golden boy of New York had become the ghost of London. On the desk lay a single piece of paper. It was short, cold, final, his resignation letter. I, Donald J. Trump, hereby resign from all control of my companies. He had written it after another brutal call from his lawyers. Bankruptcy was everywhere, debt over his head like a noose. Signing that paper meant surrender. It meant he would give up his empire, his name, his legacy. He picked up the pen. His hand shook. His eyes burned. For the first time in decades, the man who loved cameras and lights was terrified to look at his own reflection in the mirror across the room. "Maybe this is how it ends," he whispered, his voice breaking. "Maybe I was never meant to last." He pressed the pen to the paper. The ink touched the surface. History was seconds away from rewriting itself. Just as the pen hovered, a strange silence fell over the room. The sound of rain softened. The ticking of the clock slowed, and from somewhere deep in his memory, a voice emerged. It was his mother's voice, soft, melodic, filled with Scottish warmth. He was a boy again, sitting by her side in the small sitting room of their home. She had cupped his face in her hands and said, "Donald, you listen to me. When the world calls you defeated, smile, because that's when you're just getting started." He blinked, and suddenly he was back in the hotel. But the words rang louder than the storm outside. The pen slipped from his fingers. His chest tightened. He stood, walking to the mirror across the room. For a long time, he simply stared at himself. The man staring back looked exhausted, broken, ridiculed by the world. But those eyes still carried a spark. "They can take everything from me," he whispered, "but they cannot take my will." Slowly, he returned to the desk. He picked up the resignation letter. His hands trembled as he held it in front of him. For several long seconds, he just stood there, the weight of the world pressing on his shoulders. Then, with a sudden fury, he ripped it apart. The sound of tearing paper filled the room, sharp and violent. Pieces scattered across the floor like fallen feathers. He looked down at the shredded resignation, breathing heavily. And then he spoke aloud, his voice low but filled with fire. "This is not the end. This is only the beginning." The years that followed were a battlefield. Every morning was a war, every night a reminder of failure. But Trump fought. The newspapers did not let up. Every headline was designed to bury him deeper. "Trump is a joke." The end of a dynasty. In boardrooms, investors mocked him. At one meeting, a banker leaned across the table and said, Donald, you're done. Stop humiliating yourself. Forget the dream. Trump's reply was steady, unflinching. The dream is the only thing keeping me alive, and I will not let it die. He carried a notebook everywhere he went. In it, he wrote one sentence every day. One day they will regret doubting me. His friends still kept their distance. His rivals celebrated. His enemies wrote him off as a fading memory. But quietly, step by step, brick by brick, Donald Trump began to rebuild. He made small deals, ones no one paid attention to. He renovated old buildings, restored forgotten hotels, took risks no one believed in. He worked late nights in empty offices, often alone, sometimes with nothing but a cup of coffee and a burning determination to survive. There were moments of heartbreak. Deals fell through. Promises were broken. Doors slammed in his face. Yet, with each rejection, his resolve only grew. He looked at failure and said to himself, "If I survive the night I almost gave up, I can survive anything." The world didn't see it yet, but a storm was brewing. Years passed. His name began to shine again. Towers rose once more. The Trump brand returned to billboards and headlines, this time as a symbol of resilience. He had rebuilt what they thought was gone forever. But Donald Trump was not done surprising the world. In 2015, he stood before cameras and microphones and announced something no one expected. "I am running for President of the United States." The world laughed. Experts sneered. Politicians smirked. News anchors joked on live television. Trump for president? Impossible. But Trump had heard all of this before. The same laughter, the same mockery, the same predictions of his end. He remembered the London hotel, the resignation letter, the echo of his mother's voice, and he smiled. Every insult became fuel. Every attack became fire. His rallies grew larger. His message was louder. His enemies angrier. And yet, the man they once called finished was becoming unstoppable. On election night, the impossible unfolded. State by state, the numbers shifted. Commentators who once laughed now stammered. Critics who mocked him sat in stunned silence. And when the final results came, Donald Trump, the man who had once sat alone in London, ready to give up, stood before the world as the 45th President of the United States. As he walked onto the stage that night, the crowd cheering, the American flag waving, he felt a rush of memories. He remembered the torn resignation letter, the rain in London, the loneliness, the humiliation, the voice of his mother whispering across time, "Smile, Donald, because you're just getting started." And in that moment, the man the world had declared finished had not only risen again, he had changed history.